"Wrong place, sweetheart." Those words echoed through the grand halls of Cybertech Solutions, intent on shattering Noelle Carter's dreams. But what happens when a nobody becomes a talented senior manager and the pride of the company? Let us know in the comments below and tell us where in the world you're watching. This isn't just a story about defying expectations. It's also a story about a janitor's daughter defeating a notorious hacker in just 30 minutes, proving that talent truly knows no background. The story of Noelle Carter, a young woman who turned a moment of humiliation into a triumph. Are you ready to witness how she breaks down barriers and brings her family into the light? Which part of Noelle's journey has resonated with you the most so far? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any part of this incredible journey and our upcoming stories about resilience. The morning sun glinted off the towering glass facade of Cybertech Solutions, a monolith of steel and ambition piercing the city skyline. Its sleek lines and mirrored panels screamed power, a fortress where dreams were either forged or shattered. Noelle Carter, a 25-year-old black woman, stood at its base, her heart hammering like a war drum. Her simple white long-sleeve blouse clung to her frame, its crispness a quiet act of defiance against the frayed jeans she wore below. In her trembling hands, she clutched a worn plastic folder, its edges curling from overuse. Inside was her resume, painstakingly typed on a second-hand laptop her parents, Joseph and Evelyn Carter, had bought with years of scraped-together savings. They were janitors, toiling in the shadows of this very building, scrubbing floors and emptying bins while the world above chased glory. Noelle's dark eyes traced the building's height, a dizzying ascent to a future she'd dreamed of since childhood. She wasn't here to clean. She was here to claim a seat at the table, a network security administrator role, a chance to break the chains of poverty that bound her family. Her education was hard-won, community college on a shoestring budget, supplemented by late nights devouring free online courses, library books, and discarded tech manuals salvaged from Cybertech's bins. She taught herself to code, to unravel malware, to outsmart hackers, all while her parents' calloused hands pushed mops through these halls. Today, at 10 a.m., she had an interview. Today, she would prove she belonged. The revolving glass doors beckoned, their polished surfaces reflecting her silhouette, slender, unassuming, yet unyielding. She took a deep breath, tasting the city's grit and her own resolve, and stepped forward. The doors spun, ushering her into a lobby that felt like another world. Chandeliers dripped golden light onto marble floors, their gleam so fierce it seemed to mock her scuffed sneakers. The air was crisp with the scent of luxury, leather, cologne, and ambition. Men and women in tailored suits glided past, their briefcases swinging with purpose, their voices clipped with upper-crust confidence. Noelle felt their glances, quick and cutting, sizing up her dark skin, her thrift store clothes, her very existence. To them, she was an anomaly, a speck of dust in their polished universe. She squared her shoulders, her mother's words echoing in her mind. "Hold your head high, Noelle. Your worth isn't in their eyes." Evelyn's voice, soft but steely, had carried her through countless nights of doubt. Her father, Joseph, had taught her to debug code on their ancient PC, his rough hands guiding hers across the keyboard. Their sacrifices were stitched into every step she took toward the reception desk, a monolithic slab of black marble that loomed like a judge's bench. Behind it sat Catherine Wells, a white woman in her 30s, her auburn hair swept into a flawless updo. Her tailored blazer hugged her frame, and her green eyes glinted with the cold precision of a predator. A gold nameplate gleamed. Catherine Wells, reception manager. Noelle approached, her sneakers squeaking faintly on the marble. She offered a polite smile, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "Good morning. I'm Noelle Carter, here, for a 10 a.m. interview for the network security position." Catherine's eyes flicked up, scanning Noelle from her simple blouse to her faded jeans. Her lips curled into a sneer, thin and sharp as a blade. "Carter?" she said, her voice loud enough to turn heads. Related to the janitors, Joseph and Evelyn, their daughter. The word daughter dripped with disdain, a verbal slap that echoed across the lobby. A few suited employees paused, their briefcases stilled, their smirks blooming like poison flowers. Noelle's cheeks burned, but she held Catherine's gaze. "Yes, that's my family," she said, her tone even. "I'm here for the interview." Catherine leaned forward, her smile venomous, her red-painted nails tapping the desk. "This is Cybertech Solutions, sweetheart, not a charity drive. We don't hire cleaners' kids for technical roles. Are you sure you're in the right place?" The lobby seemed to contract, every whisper a needle piercing Noelle's pride. A man in a pinstripe suit stifled a laugh, muttering, "Janitors. Kid? What a joke." A woman with a pearl necklace shook her head, her pity as cutting as scorn. Noelle tightened her grip on her folder, the plastic creaking under her fingers. She thought of her parents, their backs bowed from years of labor. Their dreams poured into her. She wouldn't crumble. "I'm on the interview list," she said, her voice firmer. "Please check again." Catherine's brows arched, her eyes gleaming with malicious delight. She flipped open an appointment book, her movements deliberate, theatrical. "Let's see. Carter." She paused, her gaze locking onto Noelle's. "Nope. No Noelle Carter here. Maybe you meant the basement, where your parents belong." The words landed like a fist, not just wounding Noelle, but defiling her family's silent endurance. The lobby's hum grew louder, a chorus of whispers and snickers. Noelle's pulse thundered, her breath shallow, but her eyes blazed with defiance. She remembered her father's late-night lessons, his voice steady. "Code doesn't care about your name or your skin. It only cares if you're right." She opened her mouth to respond, but heavy footsteps interrupted. Victor Hayes, a burly white security guard, emerged from the shadows, his badge glinting like a warning. His tight uniform emphasized his bulk, his face a mask of contempt. Catherine leaned toward him, whispering, her eyes never leaving Noelle. Fragments reached her ears. "Not scheduled. Basement family, causing a scene." Victor stepped closer, his voice a low growl. "Miss, this is a professional workplace. You need to leave, or I'll escort you out." His hand hovered near his radio, a threat unspoken but clear. Noelle felt the weight of every stare, every assumption about her skin, her clothes, her right to be here. The lobby was a crucible, testing her resolve. She stood taller, her voice cutting through the tension. "I have an interview. I'm not leaving until someone checks the schedule properly." Catherine snapped her book shut, her smile carved from ice. "People like you don't belong here. Go back to where your parents sweep floors." The air thickened, the moment, teetering on the edge of explosion. Noelle's heart pounded, but her spirit refused to break. She was her parents' daughter, forged in their sacrifices, tempered by their love. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on, a lone figure against a world determined to push her out. The air in Cybertech Solutions' grand lobby turned suffocating, thick with the weight of scorn and unspoken verdicts. Noelle Carter stood, rooted before the black marble reception desk, her scuffed sneakers a defiant contrast to the polished floor. Catherine Wells's venomous words, "People like you don't belong here. Go back to where your parents sweep floors," hung like a guillotine, slicing through Noelle's pride and the legacy of her parents, Joseph and Evelyn Carter, who had toiled in this building's shadows for decades. The lobby's golden chandeliers seemed to dim, their light no match for the cold glares pinning Noelle in place. Her heart thundered, but her dark eyes burned with unyielding resolve, a fire kindled by years of her parents' sacrifices and her own relentless pursuit of a dream. Catherine leaned back, her auburn hair catching the light, her green eyes glinting with cruel triumph. Her red-painted nails tapped the closed appointment book, each click a taunt. "I've checked," she said, her voice syrupy yet sharp enough to draw blood. "No Noelle Carter on the list. Maybe you misread the janitorial schedule." The lobby erupted in stifled laughter, a chorus of suited employees. Men in pinstripe suits, women with pearl necklaces, feeding off Catherine's spectacle. A young man in a navy blazer whispered loudly to his colleague, "Janitor's kid thinking she's tech material? Pathetic." The words pierced Noelle, not just for herself, but for her parents, whose calloused hands had scrubbed these floors to give her this chance. Noelle's fingers tightened around her worn plastic folder, the resume inside a testament to her self-taught mastery of cybersecurity. Nights spent decoding malware, days poring over discarded manuals from Cybertech's bins. She forced her voice to remain steady, though her throat tightened with rage and shame. "There's a mistake. I was confirmed for a 10 a.m. interview for the network security position. Please check again." Her words were a lifeline, a refusal to let Catherine's prejudice erase her purpose. But Catherine's smile only widened, a predator savoring its prey. "Mistake?" she mocked, flipping the book open with theatrical flair. "The only mistake is you walking in here, thinking you could play in our world." Before Noelle could counter, heavy footsteps echoed, each one a hammer strike against the marble. Victor Hayes, the burly security guard, loomed into view, his tight uniform straining against his bulk. His badge gleamed like a warning, his face a mask of contempt carved from years of wielding authority. Catherine leaned toward him, her whisper, a conspiratorial hiss loud enough for Noelle to catch fragments. Not scheduled, basement family, causing a scene. Victor's eyes raked over Noelle, from her simple white blouse to her faded jeans, his judgment as palpable as a physical blow. He stepped closer, his voice a low growl that filled the lobby. "Miss, this is a professional workplace. You're not welcome here. Leave now, or I'll make you." The lobby seemed to shrink, its opulent walls closing in. Employees paused, their briefcases stilled, their smirks blooming into open amusement. A woman in a silk scarf muttered, "She's got nerve, I'll give her that," her tone laced with pity rather than support. Another man, adjusting his cufflinks, chuckled, "Back to the basement with Mom and Dad." Noelle's cheeks burned, her breath shallow, but she stood taller, her spine a steel rod forged in her parents' endurance. She thought of her father, Joseph, his rough hands guiding hers across their ancient PC, teaching her to unravel code. She heard her mother, Evelyn, praying over her late-night studies. "Your mind is your power, Noelle. Don't let them take it." "I'm not leaving," Noelle said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "I have an interview. I belong here as much as anyone." The words were a declaration, a challenge to the invisible hierarchy that deemed her unworthy. Catherine's brows shot up, her amusement giving way to irritation. "Belong?" she scoffed, crossing her arms. "This isn't a place for dreamers from the wrong side of town. You're wasting our time." Victor took another step, his hand now gripping his radio, ready to call for backup. "Last chance," he growled. "Walk out, or I drag you out." Noelle's pulse roared in her ears, her hands trembling but her gaze unwavering. She felt the weight of every stare, every assumption about her dark skin, her thrift store clothes, her lineage. The lobby was a battlefield, and she was a lone soldier facing an army of prejudice. Yet within her, a spark flared, defiance, pride, and the unbreakable will to honor her parents' sacrifices. She opened her mouth to speak, to demand justice, but Catherine cut her off, her voice rising to a theatrical crescendo. "You're a distraction, Miss Carter. A nobody trying to sneak into a world that's not yours. Security, please." Victor's hand moved to her arm, his grip hovering just shy of contact, a threat poised to erupt. Noelle's folder creaked. Under her tightening fingers, her resume a silent scream of her qualifications. She thought of her parents, their backs bowed from years of labor, their dreams poured into her. She wouldn't let this moment define her as the janitor's kid. She wouldn't let Catherine and Victor erase her. "You're wrong," she said, her voice low but resonant, echoing in the hushed lobby. "I'm here because I earned." "Go check the system, not your biases." The crowd stirred, some exchanging uneasy glances, others leaning forward, drawn to the drama. Catherine's face tightened, her composure cracking for a fleeting moment. She opened her mouth to retort, but Victor's radio crackled, his eyes flicking to it, a pause that stretched the tension taut. Noelle stood her ground, a solitary figure against a tide of scorn, her heart a furnace of resolve. The lobby held its breath, the moment teetering on the edge of escalation. Whatever came next, humiliation or vindication, Noelle knew she would face it with the strength of her parents' love and the fire of her own ambition, a flame no prejudice could extinguish. The lobby of Cybertech Solutions crackled with tension, a powder keg ready to ignite. Noelle Carter stood defiant before the black marble reception desk, her worn plastic folder trembling in her grip, her dark eyes blazing against the tide of prejudice. Catherine Wells's venomous smile and cutting words. "You're a nobody, trying to sneak into a world that's not yours," still echoed, amplified by the snickers of suited onlookers. Victor Hayes, the burly security guard, loomed closer, his hand poised to seize her arm, his growl of "walk out, or I drag you out," a final ultimatum. The golden chandeliers above seemed to flicker, casting jagged shadows across the marble floor, as if the very building held its breath. Noelle's heart pounded, her resolve a fragile flame in a storm of scorn, fueled by her parents' sacrifices, Joseph and Evelyn Carter, who scrubbed these halls to give her this moment. Then, like a thunderclap, the lobby's suffocating hum shattered. Urgent footsteps echoed, sharp and relentless, slicing through the whispers. A man stormed in, his presence a force that bent the air itself. Miles Donovan, Cybertech's CEO, was a legend in his late 40s, his salt and pepper hair immaculate, his gray suit a second skin of authority. His piercing blue eyes burned with fury, and in his hand a tablet glowed with chaotic data streams, a digital battlefield gone awry. "Who can stop this cyber attack?" he bellowed, his voice a war drum that silenced the room. "Vipers. Malware is gutting our servers, bleeding millions. Where's my security team?" Employees froze, their smirks evaporating, their briefcases clutched like shields. The lobby, moments ago a stage for Noelle's humiliation, now quaked under Miles's wrath. Catherine seized the distraction, her voice syrupy but edged with panic. "Mr. Donovan, we're handling an unauthorized visitor. She's not on the list and causing a scene." Miles cut her off with a glare that could shatter glass. "I don't give a damn about your gatekeeping, Catherine," he snapped, his tablet thrust forward like a weapon. "Vipers laughing at us. Our firewalls are crumbling, and the board's breathing down my neck. If someone, anyone can stop this, I want them now." His gaze swept the room, a predator seeking salvation, and landed on Noelle. She stood tall, her simple white blouse and faded jeans a stark contrast to the polished chaos, yet her eyes held a quiet fire that caught Miles's attention. Noelle's pulse roared, her breath shallow but her mind racing. Viper, she knew that name. A notorious hacker whose malware had toppled corporations, his digital traps a labyrinth of cruelty. She'd studied his patterns in stolen moments, dissecting his code on her ancient laptop, unraveling his tricks through sheer will. This was no coincidence. It was her crucible. As Victor's hand hovered ready to drag her out, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the din. "Sir, I can try. I've analyzed Viper's patterns." The lobby gasped, a collective hail of disbelief. Catherine scoffed, her laugh a blade. "Her? She's nobody, a janitor's kid," Victor muttered. "Back to the basement, girl." The crowd stirred, their whispers a venomous chorus. "She's delusional." "What? A waste of time." Miles' eyes narrowed, his fury giving way to a flicker of intrigue. He studied Noelle, her trembling hands, her unyielding gaze, the folder clutched like a talisman. In his world, credentials ruled, but desperation bred boldness. "You've got 120 minutes, he said, his voice low, final. "Stop Viper's malware and you're hired. Fail and you're gone, forever." The words landed like a gauntlet, a challenge that silenced the room. Catherine's jaw tightened, her triumph souring. Victor's hand dropped, his authority eclipsed. Noelle nodded, her fear swallowed by resolve. "I won't fail," she said, her voice steady, a promise to herself and her parents. Miles turned, his strides purposeful, and led Noelle through the sea of stairs to a glass-walled conference room at the lobby's edge. The door slid open, revealing a stark space with a single laptop on a sleek table, its screen a cascade of corrupted data. Viper's handiwork. Employees pressed against the glass, their faces a mix of curiosity and contempt, betting on her collapse. Catherine lingered by the desk, her smirk a silent vow of Noelle's defeat, checking her watch with theatrical disdain. Victor took position outside the door, arms crossed, ready to haul Noelle out at the first sign of failure. The lobby buzzed, a hive of doubt and spectacle, every whisper a weight on Noelle's shoulders. Inside, Noelle sat, the laptop's glow casting shadows across her face. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a heartbeat in the silence. Her hands trembled, but her mind was a blade, honed by years of self-taught grit. She thought of her father Joseph, his rough voice guiding her through code. "Find the pattern, Noelle. There's always a way in." She thought of her mother, Evelyn, her prayers a shield. "Your mind is your power." The folder lay beside her, its resume a silent testament to her worth, unseen by those who judged her skin and lineage. Viper's malware was a beast, but Noelle was no stranger to battles. She cracked her knuckles, her eyes locking onto the screen, ready to face the digital dragon. Outside, the crowd grew restless, their murmurs a drumroll of skepticism. Catherine whispered to a colleague, "She'll crash and burn." Victor's glare never wavered, his radio crackling with anticipation. But Noelle, in that glass cage, felt a spark ignite, a fusion of fear, pride, and the unbreakable will to prove them wrong. The next 120 minutes would be her proving ground, a chance to shatter the wall of prejudice with the only weapon she'd ever needed, her mind. The glass-walled conference room at Cybertech Solutions was a crucible, its stark walls amplifying the weight of the moment. Noelle Carter sat before a laptop, its screen a chaotic cascade of corrupted data. Viper's malware tearing through the company's digital heart. The clock on the wall ticked like a metronome of fate, each second a reminder of the 120 minutes. CEO Miles Donovan had given her to slay the dragon, or be banished forever. Outside, a crowd pressed against the glass, their faces a gallery of skepticism and scorn. Catherine Wells, the receptionist, smirked from her post, her auburn hair glinting, as she checked her watch with theatrical disdain. Victor Hayes, the security guard, stood like a sentinel at the door, his burly frame poised to drag Noelle out. The lobby buzzed with whispers, "She's doomed, janitor's kid playing hero." But inside, Noelle's world narrowed, to the glowing screen and the fire in her veins. Her hands trembled as she touched the keyboard, her simple white blouse and faded jeans a stark contrast to the high-stakes arena. Yet her dark eyes were steely, honed by years of self-taught grit. Viper was no myth to her. She'd studied his malware in stolen hours, dissecting his code on her ancient laptop, unraveling his traps through sheer will. This was her battlefield, and she was ready. She cracked her knuckles, the sound sharp in the silence, and dove in. The malware was a labyrinth, encrypted payloads shifting like shadows, designed to outwit even seasoned experts. Noelle's fingers flew, her mind a blade. Cutting through the chaos, she traced the entry point within 5 minutes. A phishing exploit buried in an executive's email, a chink in Cybertech's armor. The crowd outside grew restless, their murmurs a drumroll of doubt. Catherine whispered to a colleague, "She's fumbling already." Pathetic. Victor's glare never wavered, his radio crackling with anticipation. But Noelle was undeterred, her focus a fortress. She thought of her father, Joseph, his rough voice steady. "Find the pattern, Noelle. There's always a way in." She thought of her mother, Evelyn, her prayers a shield. "Your mind is your power." Her worn plastic folder lay beside her. its resume a silent testament to her worth, unseen by those who judged her skin and lineage. At 10 minutes, she isolated the malicious code, its polymorphic nature a serpent coiling to strike. Her breath hitched, but her hands were steady, mapping its mutations with precision honed from countless nights of study. Miles Donovan stood just beyond the glass, his salt and pepper hair catching the light, his piercing blue eyes locked on Noelle. His gray suit was a mantle of authority, but his face betrayed a flicker of hope, a desperate need for salvation. The board was watching, millions hung in the balance, and Viper's laughter echoed in the data's ruin. Noelle felt the weight of his gaze, but it only sharpened her resolve. At 20 minutes, she'd reverse-engineered the encryption, her mind racing through algorithms like a sprinter. She spotted the flaw, a subtle error in Viper's key exchange, a crack in his arrogance. Her heart pounded, a drumbeat of possibility. This was it, the key to unraveling the beast. The lobby's hum grew louder, the crowd sensing the ticking clock. Catherine's smirk widened, her voice carrying, "She's got no chance. 2 hours, she'll crash in 10 more minutes." Victor shifted, his hand twitching toward his radio, ready to act. But Noelle was a storm in motion. At 25 minutes, she crafted a custom script, her fingers a blur as she wove lines of code to exploit Viper's mistake. Her script was lean, surgical, a weapon born of necessity. At 30 minutes, she deployed it, her breath held as the screen flickered. The data stream stuttered, then stabilized, flowing cleanly like a river freed from poison. Viper's malware was dead, its grip shattered in half an hour, 90 minutes faster than Miles had dared hope. Noelle stood, her heart a thunderclap, and tapped the table, the sound echoing like a gavel. "It's done," she said, her voice steady, resonant. Miles signaled his lead engineer, a wiry man who rushed to verify. Moments later, he looked up, stunned. "She's right. The system's clean. Viper's gone. In 30 minutes. Silence swallowed the room, a hush so profound it seemed the chandeliers dimmed. Catherine's jaw dropped, her smugness crumbling like ash. Victor stepped back, his menace deflated, his radio silent. The crowd's whispers died, replaced by gasps of disbelief. Noelle, the janitor's daughter, had done the impossible. Miles's stern face broke into a rare smile, a crack in his armor of authority. "Noelle Carter," he said, his voice carrying through the glass. "You just saved Cybertech from a multi-million-dollar breach in record time. Who are you?" Noelle met his gaze, her trembling hands steadying, her eyes alight with pride. "I'm Noelle Carter, daughter of Joseph and Evelyn Carter, who cleaned this building. I taught myself cybersecurity because talent doesn't need a pedigree." Her words were a banner, a defiance of every sneer, every doubt. The crowd stirred, some averting their eyes, others leaning closer, caught in the gravity of her triumph. Miles turned to the onlookers, his voice a blade. "This is what Cybertech needs. Raw ability, not privilege. Noelle, you're hired as a network security administrator, effective immediately." Catherine stammered, her face flushed. "But her background—" Miles silenced her with a look that could freeze fire. "Her background outsmarted Viper in 30 minutes, yours didn't." The lobby quaked, its hierarchy shaken. Noelle stepped out of the conference room, her sneakers no longer squeaking but striding with purpose. Her folder, once a shield, now felt like a trophy, carrying her parents' dreams and her own unbreakable will. The glass walls that caged her now reflected a warrior, not a victim, her victory a spark that threatened to ignite a new era. The glass-walled conference room at Cybertech Solutions, once a crucible of doubt, now stood as a monument to Noelle Carter's triumph. Her 30-minute miracle, slaying Viper's malware when given 120 minutes, had silenced the lobby's jeers, turning whispers of scorn into murmurs of awe. As Noelle stepped out, her simple white blouse and faded jeans no longer marked her as an outsider, but as a warrior who had reshaped the battlefield. The golden chandeliers above cast a radiant glow, as if saluting her victory. Yet the weight of her journey was far from over. The lobby, still humming with the aftershock of her feet, was a microcosm of a world reluctant to change. Catherine. Wells's smirk had crumbled, her auburn hair framing a face flushed with defeat. Victor Hayes, the burly guard, stood deflated, his menace reduced to a grudging nod. But Noelle's eyes were fixed forward, her heart carrying the dreams of her parents, Joseph and Evelyn Carter, whose janitorial labor had built the ladder she now climbed. Miles Donovan, Cybertech's CEO, stood before her, his salt and pepper, hair catching the light, his piercing blue eyes softened by rare admiration. "Noelle Carter," he said, his voice a quiet thunder, "you're not just hired. You're the future of this company." His words rippled through the crowd, a decree that shifted the air. He turned to the onlookers, his gray suit a mantle of authority. "Cybertech thrives on talent, not pedigree. Let this be a lesson," Catherine stammered, her protest drowned by Miles' resolve. Noelle's worn plastic folder, clutched like a talisman, felt lighter now, its resume a silent vow fulfilled. She nodded, her voice steady. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." The lobby, once a gauntlet of prejudice, parted as she walked, her sneakers striding with purpose, each step a testament to her parents' sacrifices. The months that followed were a crucible of their own. Noelle threw herself into her role as network security administrator, her desk a fortress of monitors and code. She built firewalls that turned back digital tides, crafted predictive algorithms that outsmarted threats, and led projects that fortified Cybertech's defenses. Her colleagues, initially skeptical, watched in quiet awe as she unraveled complex attacks with the ease of a maestro. Her self-taught brilliance, honed in the shadow of her parents' mops, shone brighter than any Ivy League degree. Catherine, relegated to her reception desk, watched with simmering resentment, her whispers of beginner's luck falling on deaf ears. Victor, passing Noelle in the halls, averted his gaze, his once iron authority softened by the reality of her ascent. By her first anniversary, Noelle's star had risen beyond imagination. Miles called her to his office, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city's sprawl. "Noelle," he said, his voice firm but warm, "you've redefined what's possible here. I'm promoting you to Director of Network Security, a role no one your age or background has ever held." Noelle's breath caught, her eyes glistening with disbelief and pride. She thought of her parents, their calloused hands, their midnight prayers. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice thick. "This is for them." Miles nodded, a rare smile breaking through. "Lead with that fire, Noelle. It's what makes you unstoppable." The promotion ceremony was held in Cybertech's grand auditorium, a cathedral of glass and steel aglow with warm lights. Noelle stood at the podium in a tailored navy suit, her presence commanding yet humble. The room brimmed with employees, board members, and a few former doubters, their faces a mix of respect and unease. In the front row sat Joseph and Evelyn Carter, their worn coats a stark contrast to the polished crowd. Joseph's hands, rough from years of labor, clasped Evelyn's, her silver hair framing a tearful smile. Their pride was a beacon, illuminating the path Noelle had forged. Noelle's voice rang clear, cutting through the auditorium's hush. "This moment isn't mine alone. It belongs to my parents, Joseph and Evelyn Carter, who worked endless nights scrubbing these halls so I could dream." Her eyes locked on theirs, her voice trembling with gratitude. "Mom, Dad, you're my heroes. Every sacrifice, every tear built this stage I stand on." The room stirred, a wave of emotion rippling through the crowd. She turned to the audience, her gaze fierce yet inclusive. "To anyone feeling invisible like I once did, know this. Your talent is enough. Break through and lift others as you rise. No barrier, prejudice, poverty, or doubt can hold you back if you believe in your worth." The auditorium erupted in applause, a thunderous wave that shook the glass walls. Even Catherine, seated stiffly in the back, clapped reluctantly, her resentment overshadowed by Noelle's undeniable light. Board members nodded, their skepticism replaced by cautious respect. Noelle stepped down, her navy suit catching the light, and embraced her parents. Evelyn whispered, her voice choked, "We knew you'd soar, Noelle." Joseph, his eyes wet, added, "You've shown the world what's possible." Their hug was a sanctuary, a moment that spanned a lifetime of struggle and triumph. As Noelle led her parents through the lobby, once a gauntlet of scorn, now a corridor of nods and smiles, she felt a truth take root. Her greatest victory wasn't the title or the applause, it was bringing her parents into the light, proving that worth transcends lineage. Outside, the city sparkled, but for Noelle, the true radiance was the hope she'd ignited, for herself, her family, and countless others dreaming in the shadows. The revolving glass doors spun, framing a new dawn, where talent and tenacity could rewrite even the oldest stories. Noelle. Carter's journey from a janitor's daughter to cybertech's trailblazer shows that talent and courage can shatter any barrier. What moved you most about her story? Her defiance against prejudice, her 30-minute miracle, or her heartfelt tribute to her parents? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're joining us from. Your voice fuels our mission to share stories of resilience. Thank you for being part of Noelle's triumph. We're grateful for your support. Subscribe for more inspiring tales, and we'll see you in the next story, where new heroes rise.